Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is of course a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And I can tell you it's definitely good to get back to doing some videos again after quite a while of disruption to my usual sort of schedule. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back and watching. Hope you're enjoying it. And if you are a brand new viewer, hope you enjoy. And if you do, make sure you smash the like and subscribe button. But in this video, we are continuing my Soulblight Gravelords series, my long in-depth army reviews like I've done for Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Nighthorn, Flesh Eater Courts, Gloomspite Git, Slaves to Darkness, Beasts of Chaos, etc, etc. That sort of style again for the Soulblight. And in this part, we are going to be going over the Deathmages. So this section only has 3 war scrolls to go through. We're going to go through the Necromancer, the Chamberlain, the guy who is from Cursed City, that Necromancer, and then the Mortise Engine. And we're going to go over it in that order as well. If you're watching this and you're after my sort of thoughts on what I think of anything Death Rattle or Dead Walkers, please go and check out my videos I have done on both of those basically sub-factions within Soulblight Gravelords. And I have already fully reviewed those. Again, if you want to know my thoughts on the sub-allegiances and sub-allegiances, I have done that as well. And if you want a bit of a lore video, check out my lore video I've done for them. And if you want to know quickly why I play Soulblight Gravelords, check out my why I play video as well. Just in case you're wondering that when you're watching this video, I've already done it. And then after this will probably be my Soulblight review part of my Soulblight Gravelords video. So sounds a little bit confusing, but basically going over all the vampire units, which by God is going to be a long one. So we look forward to that coming in the future. But at this stage, we haven't quite made it to get that blood kiss. We haven't quite made it to the vampire level, as we are still Deathmages, still a lonely necromancer bound to the strains of mortality. So the first unit we're going to look at is going to be the Necromancer, and as usual we're going to look at a bit of the lore before we get stuck in, just so we know who we're talking about. So Necromancers are surrounded by crawling wisps of Shaitian energies and clutching crooked skulls topped staffs. Necromancers shuffle forwards alongside the shambling hordes of the undead. Though they may appear as a common beggar, clad they are in filthy rags, their faces hollow and gaunt. These corrupt souls are vital components of Gravelord armies. At their muttered commands, ranks of the living dead emerge from shallow corpse pits, eyes blazing with amethyst light. Through their forbidden arts are ranks of skeletons and miling mobs of dead walkers, given unholy vigour, of which their mere sight terrifies their foe. Though necromancers are not inherently more gifted than an alchemist or wizard of Azir, they are willing to perform truly horrifying acts in pursuit of power. Corpse snatching and sacrifice, experimentation on the living and unhallowed flesh melding. Many have been turned by the dark energies they wield. For each foe lance with a spear of necromantic energy, and every arrow fraught by a hastily raised shield of bone. The Necromancer batters away a little more of their humanity, further chaining themselves to Nagash's tyrannical will. And now we know what a Necromancer is, let's talk about what he's like on the tabletop. So, he's going to cost you 125 points. So that's actually 10 points more than the Chamberlain, who we'll get to next. So just something to bear in mind there. He is a leader and he is a single model, of course. Going on to his war scroll, his description. A Necromancer is a single model armed with a Mortise staff. Looking at his will stats, he has a 5-inch movement, a 6+ save, bravery 10 and 5 wounds. So off the bat they're very, very poor, but you know, we'll get to why you take him in your army in a moment. But you know, 6+ save, 5 wounds, 5-inch movement, this guy's going to die pretty quickly. Going on to his melee weapons though, we have the Mortise Staff. So this is a 1-inch range, 2 attacks, freeze and freeze, -1 rend, D3 damage. Standard wizard attack, although I think most wizards only have 1 attack with their weapon, and it may be wounds on a 4 for a lot of wizards. So, you know, a pretty good wizard attack there as it goes, which is a staff. Going on to his abilities though, we can start seeing why he's better than we first think. He has undead minions. Roll a dice before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to this model if it is within 3 inches of any friendly Soulblight Gravelords Symbol units. On a 3+, that wound or mortal wound is allocated to one of those units instead of this model. So what I'll quickly say there is it says before you allocate a wound, you roll a dice. So that means that you don't have a choice. So if you really want to keep that skeleton next to him alive for some reason, you have to roll a dice to see who the damage is going to go on to. But you can see how this is really starting to help his survivability, because again, it's not going to always save your life for this guy, but it does mean on average you'll be ignoring 2/3 of the damage dealt to this guy if he is amongst Symbol units, which I suggest you make sure he is. Put him in a block of zombies, block of skeletons, whatever you need to, because his spell is also going to be very useful for that as well, because he has the obviously bay part of this guy is he's a wizard, right? So magic. This model is a wizard. He can attempt to cast one spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind one spell in the enemy hero phase. It knows the Arcane Bowl, Mystic Shield, and Van Hell's Dance Macabre spells. And let's get on to that one now. So, Van Hell's Dance Macabre has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick one friendly Soulblight Gravelords Symbol unit wholly within 18 inches of the caster until your next hero phase. If that unit has fought only once in the combat phase, when it is your turn to pick a unit to fight, that unit can be picked to fight for a second time if it is within 3 inches of any enemy units. Okay, so this is very good. Like I mentioned, things like zombies, skeletons, of course. But, you know, big ticket item here, Graveguard. They absolutely love this. They're very good. I've already reviewed Graveguard, and I think they're one of the best units in the Soulblight Gravelords book, and that's not just the opinion that I have. Lots of people think that. So this guy is definitely a fantastic complement to a block of Graveguard. Put him next to them, in the middle of them, means that he's shrugging off the damage onto the Graveguard as well, so it helps him out stay alive. And he's making your Graveguard do horrendous amounts of damage. Now, again, casting value of 6, there are ways for you to plus your casting in this army as well, but it's not always a guarantee, so you should get this spell, but bear in mind the enemy can unbind it and everything else, and he doesn't get any pluses to cast off the bat. So it's a fantastic spell, but you can't rely on it too much, in all honesty with you guys. But it is definitely worth including a Necromancer in your army if you are taking Symbol units, just to get that spell off on your Graveguard, your zombies, your skeletons, and also the lore of the Deathmages, which I've already reviewed, but I'll quickly mention after we review the next character as well, just to say what spells I would pick for them from that lore. Then going on to the keywords, we have Death, Soulblight Gravelords, Deathmages, Hero, Wizard, and Necromancer. So my thoughts on Necromancer is you basically want to take him in your army in most cases. You know, probably, I don't know, 80% of army lists I asked to come up for Soulblight Gravelords was including Necromancer, and the ones that didn't would be a bit special. It would be, I don't know, a Terrorgeist spam, or Nagash is in there, or, you know, you're going mad with Blood Knights or something. Most of the other ones, though, involving all those Symbol units, there will be a Necromancer. And with that, we move on to what essentially has become our named character version of a Necromancer, which is Tor Guilis the Chamberlain, or some also call him Tim. And of course, he is the guy from Warhammer Quest Curse City, from Ulfenkhan. A little bit of lore for this guy is, this dark magician has earned himself a place in Radakar's court, thanks to his mastery of Gravesand and its uses. When called into battle, Tor Guilis can unleash devastating sorcery that leaves any survivors drained of all strength. That's all the lore I've got for this guy. So going on to his rules, he is going to cost you 115 points. So pretty goddamn cheap, to be honest with you. I mean, 10 points cheaper than that Necromancer. And usually the named characters are more expensive, aren't they, in points? So let's see what we're going to get. So bear in mind he's cheaper, so anything's a bonus, essentially. Of course, he's a one-man model, despite all of his various pets on top of him. And he is, of course, a leader. Going on to his war scroll, its description is, Tor Guilis the Chamberlain is a named character that is a single model. He has a 5-inch movement, a 6+ save, bravery 10 and 6 wounds, so he's got an extra wounds compared to the normal Necromancer. Going on to his melee weapons, he's got claws and fangs, so range a 1-inch, 4 attacks, 5s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. So you can clearly see much worse attack than a normal Necromancer, but you're not taking a Necromancer to be really, really strong in combat anyway, so it's not really too much of a downside. Going on to his abilities, he has a mastery of Gravesand, so roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to this unit. On a 4+, that wound or mortal wound is negated. That's very good because that would be a huge thing the normal Necromancer has over this guy, the ability to be able to shrug off wounds. Now, what I will say is that it's not that 3+, but this guy doesn't need to be next to a Sunball unit to do it. And this guy doesn't have to be near a Sunball unit to benefit them by giving them Van Hell's Dance Macabre, because he doesn't have it. So, this is generally a better ability for this guy. He's going to ignore 50% of all damage. So that means that, does that mean that he's really got 9 wounds? Not really too sure on the mass hammer there, but something like that. Anyway, very good. Going on to his next ability is Trusted Lieutenant. So, at the start of your hero phase, if this model is within 3 inches of a friendly Radakar the Wolf, roll a dice. On a 4+, you receive 1 extra command point. Command points are always good, but in 3rd edition, we get quite a lot of them. And are you going to be next to Radakar the Wolf? Because as it says, in bold block text, Radakar the Wolf, not Radakar the Beast, which I think more people take. You might not be getting it, but if you bought Wormrequest and you're taking this guy and you're taking Radakar the Wolf, then cool, an extra command point for you. Now, going on to the magic, this model is a wizard. It can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. It knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, Necromancer Rotten Bolt spells. Let's give that another crack, because we're about to go on to it. So, Necromancer Bolt, I think is a lot better way to say that, has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick 1 enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster that's visible to them, and subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit until your next hero phase. Okay, so you're subtracting 1 to the enemy's hit rolls. Not as good as it was subtracting 1 to wound rolls, as I've always mentioned before, but I like that subtracting 1 because, yes, the enemy can just go all-out attack, boom, there you go, they've got their +1 to hit again, it's made this spell useless. But that means that the enemy can only use that all-out attack once, right, in that combat phase, because you can't span the command ability unless there's some rule out there that changes that, but there isn't as far as I'm aware in most cases. You can only do all-out attack once. So if you're having to spend it on, let's say, Archaon, why not? Because this guy said he can drain all of their strength, right? So let's pick the big guy like that. Now Archaon is going to be -1 to hit. Yep, sure, we put all attack on him, so he's +1 to hit again, but at the end of the day, that's still a bit annoying because you've had to use all-out attack on Archaon when you might want to use it on something else. Example. Now, this is casting value 6, so same as Van Hell's Dance Macabre. And what spell do I prefer? Van Hell's Dance Macabre every day, because I think that's absolutely fantastic for Graveguard, etc. And when I say every day, not strictly true, because if you're not taking all those Sunball units, it's not useful, obviously, but most cases you are taking Graveguard, etc. So I think overall, the Necromancer spell is better. But this guy has a good spell if you just want to have a cheap wizard in your army, essentially. Now, going on to his keywords, he's got Death, Soulblight Gravelords. He's the Virkos dynasty, remember though. Deathmages, Hero, Wizard, Necromancer, Tor Guilis the Chamberlain. So, what I'll just say there, a couple of restrictions. Obviously, this guy is unique, so no command traits, no artifacts to him, which does make him, worse than the Necromancer, because there are things you can give the Necromancer to help him out with casting, etc. And he's Virkos dynasty, which means he can be taken in other dynasties, but if there is certain abilities in those dynasties that mean if you're Legion of Blood, etc., you get this bonus. Although he can be in Legion of Blood, he wouldn't get that Legion of Blood bonus because he doesn't have that keyword, etc. He is in Virkos dynasty, so a couple more restrictions there. But I think for 115 points, bear in mind that a lot of stuff when like Curse City, basically those models got rules for Age of Sigmar. I'm not saying all the rules are bad at all. Some of them are definitely quite good. But it's very much like any box game that can be translated into Age of Sigmar. The models for rules terms and get given war scrolls. It's like, you're not expecting much, right? Most war bands, etc. that can be used in Age of Sigmar aren't good, bar a few exceptions. So, to be able to read someone's war scroll, like the Chamberlain here, from Curse City, and go, you know what? He's got some uses and he could fit into an army. That's really, really good for him. So, definitely worth considering, and for 115 points, I think pretty good and cheap, to be honest with you. Like the Gravekeeper, I think is a very good one when we were talking about Deadwalkers. But that is Tor Guilis the Chamberlain, and I'll quickly just mention again some of the lore spells from the lore of the Deathmages I like, because the last unit we're going to go over, being the Mortise Engine, it's not actually a wizard, which I know is very weird because it's in the Deathmage section, but here we are. So my 3 favourite spells for the lore of the Deathmages, bear in mind I'm thinking about using it for these 2 characters, not like, Nagash or someone. We've got 3. So the first one is going to be Spectral Grasp. because what that does is it has a casting value of 6. It's successfully cast. Pick one terrain feature wholly within 18 inches of the caster that is visible to them until your next hero face half the move characteristics, rounding down of enemy units that start a normal move within 3 inches of that terrain feature. And that's absolutely huge. Like, there are some massive terrain features on the table that you can pick for this. I've used it countless times. It was the same thing basically in Legions of Nagash. Very, very good and very, very useful spell. The game quite often is one on movement, let alone. So, very good spell there. And then the next one is, I'm going to butcher the name of it because I've forgotten how you pronounce it, but Decrepify, I think that's what it is. Basically, casting value 6 is successfully cast. Pick one enemy hero within 18 inches of the caster, and that is visible to them. Until your next hero phase, subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made by that model, and subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that model's melee weapons to a minimum of 1. So, why do I think this one's very good? Because in 3rd edition, there's so many big characters running around, monsters, basically always heroes, get around killing things. This is very useful because you can try and stop them. Because where before, if this came out in 2nd edition and go, well, you know, not every enemy army is going to bring a big hero to do the damage. It's quite often a block of scary infantry, etc. I actually think that, obviously these days, it is that big hero running around, so I do like this spell because that means that it's going to bugger them up. Because if you manage to get this off on, let's bring out Archaon again, that means that he is now subtracting 1 from his wound rolls, which he doesn't like, because remember, there's not many ways to +2 wound rolls. And he is also going to be -1 to his damage, which, again, it doesn't state the guy riding the monster or whatever. It does affect the mount as well. So very, very good, very useful there. And there's going to be lots of things you can use this against, probably when you're going against your enemy. And then going on to the 3rd one I like as well is Prison of Grief, because Prison of Grief has a casting value of 6. It's successfully cast. Pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them. Until your next hero phase, roll a dice each time that unit attempts to move. On a 5+, that unit cannot move in that phase. The same unit cannot be affected by this spell more than once per turn. You think, why is that in it? Why can it be affected more than once per turn? Remember, the Locus of Shaiish, I believe it was called, which means that you can, trigger an effect of a spell twice, basically, if you get a 9+ casting unmodified in this army. But I like this spell because, again, it affects enemy movement, and you can win the game based on movement alone. So very useful there. And those are 3 spells that I would recommend for these 2 Necromancers you've got in your army, essentially, to go for. Because although Tor Guilis the Chamberlain is, of course, a unique character, that does not obviously stop him taking spells. So here we are. And then with that, guys, we're going to move on to our last unit review. I know it seems a bit weird because these videos usually go on for an hour, but I like the Deathmages. Very small, only 3 war scrolls, but I seem to have managed to drag it out anyway. But going on to the Mortise Engine, so a bit of lore for it, is those few Necromancers who achieve their aims of becoming true masters of undeath, and also losing the ability to be a wizard and cast spells for some reason, are treated with almost reverent awe by their followers. On the especially rare occasion that such a being is destroyed, their remains are collected up with an absolute patience by their acolytes, for they still resonate with forbidden power. The remnants of these Lich Emperors are then bound within caskets and reliquaries and mounted on the Necro-Arcane Aberrants, known as Mortise Engines. Such ghastly conveyances are formed from dark material matter and magic, and are held aloft by spirits of those once bound into service by the destroyed Deathmage. They soar through the skies in ominous silence and steady eye of a hurricane of necromantic energy. Each Mortise Engine acts as a lodestone of Shaiish energy, clawing death magic to itself for other practitioners of black arts to wield. In times of crisis, the Corpse Master charged with the guiding of the engine can unleash its stored energies in a single terrible pulse, dragging undead warriors to their feet once more, as entire ranks of enemies collapse like a tower of cards in a chill breeze. Such is the morbid power that surrounds the Mortise Engine, that even the predatory endless spells of the arcane Optima have been known to avoid them. Some part of their strange Animus recognises the aura of pure ending magic that clings to these horrific creations and causes them to keep their distance. Okay, so that is the Mortise Engine in the lore. Now going on to its War Scroll. So, firstly, going on about points though. Of course, it's a single model, and points-wise, this thing is 200 points. Not too many points. I believe it went up 20 points since Legion and Nagash, because that was 180 points, I believe. But the Mortise Engine, I generally think, is pretty good. Of course, it is also going to be a behemoth. So sadly, that means you would only be able to take 4 of these in your army. And to be honest with you, I think 4 of these in an army could do pretty damn well, because the thing what obviously Death lacks in, and particularly Soulblight Gravelords, because before someone shouts out Ossiarch Bone Reaper's catapults, is they lack shooting. And what this Mortise Engine can do, albeit a very short range, it has potential to project damage, right? Mortal wounds everywhere. And because your army already does a lot of mortal wounds, you might think might not be necessary, but to be able to get past those screens, etc., is very, very good. So taking 4 of these things could be fantastic. You know, if you've got 4, give it a go, of course. But going on to its War Scroll, and firstly its description. A Mortise Engine is a single model driven by a Corpse Master armed with a Mortis Staff. Mount. This model's spectral host attacks with their claws, Wails of the Damned, and spectral claw and blades. This model can fly. Now going on to its will stat, it starts with a 14-inch movement but gets worse the more damage it takes. Again, it's got a damage table here, you know, being a behemoth. Not really too unusual there. Okay, going on to its save, it's got a 4+ save, a bravery of 10 and wounds 12. Wounds 12 for a 200-point behemoth isn't unsurprising, so that's fine. A 4+ save is good for something of that size. Bravery 10, again, we expect that with death. But the 14-inch movement is particularly fast. You know, you can imagine this thing having a 10-inch movement or something. So 14 inches I like. Going on to its weapons, it, by God, does have a missile weapon like I mentioned. This is fantastic. So Wail of the Damned, and its range is a star, which means it starts with 12. The more damage it takes, the less the ranger gets. Again, damage table. And then for its attacks, it says see below. So we're going to have a quick look at that now. We're going to jump ahead just so we know that it is, rather than going here and there. So Wail of the Damned is do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with the Wail of the Damned. Instead, roll a dice for each enemy unit within range of this model's Wail of the Damned. And a 4+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So that's fantastic, because within, you know, 12 inches, again, not a big range, but for death, huge range, massive if you take away that bloody catapult. So I like that. And when you think like, well, within 12, let's say this thing's quite close to the enemy, is a good day, there's 3 enemy units within range of it, and there's that 4 up, again, you know, you're not going to get all of them, but you should get at least one of them. Take 4 of these things, you're going to be rolling 4s all the time. So I think this is particularly good. Going on to its meta weapons though, we have the Mortis Staff, which is a 1-inch range, 2 attacks, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, D3 damage. So like a Necromancer, but just 1 away off from being as good on the hitting part. Going on to the Spectral Claws, we have a 1-inch range, starts with 12 attacks, 5s and 4s, no rend and 1 damage. But they also have the Frightful Touch ability, which we'll get to now. So if the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with this model's skeletal claws and blades is a 6, and the attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target, the attack sequence ends. Do not make a wound or save roll. So that's fantastic there. We're basically just standard with all these things. If you know the Mortarchs and stuff, and Nagash, obviously, they all have the same thing with these special claws and blades, although I know Nagash's one has changed, which we'll get to when we review Nagash, etc. But going on to the next ability, we have the Reliquary. So, once per battle in your hero phase, you can say that this model will unleash the energies of its Reliquary. If you do so, roll a dice for each unit within 12 inches of this model. On a 2+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Death units are not affected by this ability. So this is great, obviously, because you pair that with the Wail of the Damned. If you want, obviously, Wail of the Damned's going off all the time, but time it, obviously, for when you want to go boom, Wail of the Damned and this, where Wail of the Damned was not really guaranteed, is that 4-up, isn't it? This 2-up, pretty much guaranteed. Same range as well, so you don't have to worry about that. And you take, like I say, again, 4 of these would be fun, right? But taking 2 of them, something's more likely. And what that means is that, obviously, that's a lot of mortal wounds you can do to the enemy all in one go from a range, getting over those screens. You could easily, like I say, you take 2 to 3-4 of these if you really want to, you could wipe out these 5 wound enemy characters hiding behind screens. They're not going to get look at surf from this, etc. It's mortal wounds. It's really, really quite good. The one thing I would like, though, the reliquary, though, is the death units are not affected by this. It literally says in the lore, it raises the dead back up, right, when they're knocked down. Make it heal D3 wounds or D3 wounds worth of models, etc. I know that's basically copy and pasted so much in this army already, but come on. It says it in the lore. Put it in the rules. That's what I say. Going on to the next ability, we have Bound Necromancer. So add 1 to casting rolls for friendly Soulblight Gravelord wizards wholly within 12 inches of any friendly models with this ability. So you take this, you take one of the corpse cards, that's now giving you +2 to cast. So for your Necromancer who wanted to do Van Hels's Dance Macabre, he was trying to get it on a 6. He would get it on a 4 if he had this and a corpse card near him, didn't he? So that's what I was trying to mention earlier, that there are ways to do it. And the same with the Chamberlain as well, because you don't need to take an artifact to be able to give him better casting. You can just do this. So that's why when I create a Soulblight Gravelords list, I do always try to put a Mortise Engine in the army, because that +1 to cast. To be honest, if you're taking a lot of wizards, you're taking Mortarchs, Nagash, etc., it's just worth it alone, just that +1 to cast, but then also that damage potential. And if you're taking one of these, you'll do a bit of mortal wound into the enemy with the reliquary, etc. But it's nothing really for you to rely on too much or to really change too much of the game. But when you start taking 2 of these things, you can definitely start relying on it as being a damage dealer for sure. And with that, guys, that's going to bring us to the end of the Mortise Engine with just the keywords to go. So he's got Death, Malignant, whatever the hell that means over the last 5 years, Soulblight Gravelords, Deathmages, and Mortise Engine. So again, Death Mage, but not a wizard. Very important there. And to be honest, if he was a wizard, maybe he'd be more expensive in points and maybe he'll be less likely to be taken. So who knows, we could have actually had quite a good thing here, not being a wizard. But with that, guys, that brings us to the end of this video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's my first one for a while, basically. My last video is just me saying why I haven't made videos for a while. And hopefully I'll be able to keep up again. But again, guys, very, very busy. So try and do this as much as possible. We're going into New Year. Like I said, we're going to have change of content and stuff. We're going to be doing a lot more hobby focus and try and get that going, because when I do get to do anything like Warhammer, it is just building and painting. And just to give you like an idea of how much of that I have been doing, I've been able to do some painting today, which is the first time for a month. And I know a lot of you guys out there are the same, but I just want to let you know that's why the content hasn't been, you know, that much flowing and stuff at the moment because of that. But I'll do my absolute best as always to try and make as much as possible as I can for you guys. And we'll get in towards the end now of this series of the Soulblight Gravelords. So if you did enjoy the video, please do me a massive favour and smash the like button, the subscribe button and the bell notification. Really helps out the channel, as I always say, guys. Keeps the channel going and it's absolutely free. So honestly, why not do it? And then if you've got any thoughts on what I've said today on the Deathmages, comment that down below. If anything you agree with me, put it down. That's always nice. But if there's anything you disagree with me, let me know why and tell me from your experience why you think things can be used differently. And again, we're all going to learn from it, of course. And what I'd also say is if you'd like to support the channel a step further, I have actually got a YouTube membership, which means if you click the join button next to the subscribe button, you'll be able to become a member here in Age of Nagash, which means you can support the channel for giving anything from £1 a month, go straight towards the channel, keeps it going, and there's a link to my Patreon at the top of the description down below. It means you can give anything from just $1 a month, and it's exactly the reason how this channel keeps going. As like I say to you guys, the more busy I get in life and just generally what happens in life, the less time I have to do this. So when I get support via means of, you know, YouTube membership from you guys and Patreon, it gives me more justification to spending more time on this when things are very, very busy. So I really, really do appreciate that, and I appreciate it so much that I always give these guys a shout out when I can, and I certainly will be doing it now. So the people who have made this fantastic decision to support, starting off with my Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, is going to be Filq. Now, Filq has continually given a huge support to the channel, which always blows me away, and I'm massively a huge fan of your really kind generosity, Filq. Please keep it up. It really is appreciated, and it goes a huge way to keeping the channel going. And then going on to my Morgasts, who also give a huge amount of support to the channel. We're going to have Bleed Red, the Mortarch of the Necropolis, Edward P, and Gullswept Dandy. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support of that tier. It really does make a huge difference to giving the channel the extra support it really needs. Then going on to my vampires, we have Ben C, Rouse321, David A, Dragoonity, Ronni H, Darren L, SpareBear, Christopher H, Northdrop, Nathan F, Andrew G, Tom W, Wiggy Whooty, and Nathan S. Guys, thank you so much as well. As Vampires, you're giving a continuing amount of support to the channel. I always do say you guys are the core that keeps us going. Then going on to my Necromancers, of course, which are going to be Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Cranky Wombat, Tom M, Christopher C, Krista F, James S, Thomas B, Steve T, James T, Patrick F, JJ, R Christopher, Sception, Shaun S, Gordon W, and Val. Guys, thank you all so much. And I just want to say a special shout out to Gordon W and Val, who have decided to become very recently patrons of mine. So guys, thank you so much for that. And I would also say that you probably decided to do that while I wasn't able to make any content for about a month and stuff, so I do appreciate you guys doing it there, where wasn't always coming out with loads of new videos and stuff, and you guys still decided to support the channel. So I'm really glad that you guys are enjoying the content and you want to support that way. You 100% won't regret it. And if anyone wants to do an amazing job like Gordon and Val, or anyone else who's become a Patreon YouTube member of mine, like I say, the link to my Patreon down below in the description. Anything you can give massively goes a huge way to support the channel. And or join my membership here on YouTube, where you do by clicking the join button, and gives support directly to the channel and keeps me going and gets really as many people into our community that we have here, into the Discord, which is an amazing place. So make sure you join that if you'd like to, and really helps me get as many people into our hobby and to try and help them continue their hobby the best they can, and especially, like I say, going forward more into the building, painting, etc., that sort of stuff, because I really think that's where a lot of us spend our time doing, and where a lot of new people and a lot of experienced people do need help and just sharing experiences and ideas. So guys, if you would like to support the channel, join, become a Patreon, YouTube member, etc. If you can't do that though, and you do enjoy the video, all I ask you, smash the like button, subscribe button, bell notification, and comment down below your thoughts or any more questions, as it's just a really easy, a really quick way, and more importantly, free way of supporting the channel. And if you think you know someone who enjoyed the video, make sure you share it with them. So until next time guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're keeping well. If I don't make a video before the new year starts, have a fantastic New Year's Eve, a great start to the new year, and remember until next time, to stay safe, stay hygienic, make sure you wear a mask if you need to, and for God's sake wash your hands, keep Nurgle at bay, but more importantly, until next time, remember that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.